Russia says that Ukraine to give Russia an ultimatum. So the reason I wanted to bring this up is because this is something that I've mentioned before, not just tonight, as far as the goings on between Russia and Ukraine and the threats and so forth going back and forth, in particular from Ukraine and NATO. It says from Ukraine's non-president, because his term expired quite a while ago now, I think it was back in May, Zelensky, a new Ukrainian ballistic missile will hit something very important in Moscow, then Russia will be given an ultimatum: either leave Ukraine or will destroy Moscow and St. Petersburg. Now, this is something that was reported by Hal on HalTurnerRadioShow.com on August 28th, so just a few days ago, last week. But interesting that he's talking about Moscow and St. Petersburg. That's what Zelensky mentioned specifically. And where have you heard that before? Well, if you've been a follower of this show for a while, it's something that I've talked about for about the last year and a half. Off and on, I put out this, what I'm calling the End Times Events timeline that's not set to any sort of dates. It's more set to events. Different events happening in different triggered situations. And you'll notice the first top post-it note things here that I have. World War III starts. False flag. NATO enters Ukraine and Russia conflict officially. Nuclear exchange. Russia hit, ? Moscow and St. Petersburg. So that's something that I mentioned on this program a year and a half ago. And that is something Hal is reporting on last week. That Ukraine is threatening to attack or hit Moscow and St. Petersburg to destroy them, or to at least hit them, if they don't leave Ukraine. So that's the ultimatum that was being mentioned. I thought that was very interesting that something that I had said that long ago is now coming to be front and center, more or less, in the back and forth between Russia and Ukraine. The ultimatum. So who knows if they'll actually carry out any of this stuff, but the point is they're at least threatening it. So I think it's very interesting and super scary. So anyway, not that I want that to happen. I'm just saying, man, something's going on. And I do believe that this is probably a likely scenario for some of the way that some of these things could unfold in the coming weeks and months ahead. So we can go through this. I guess we could. I've mentioned it here and there, and it's still early enough in the evening. We could go through this a little bit, I suppose. World War III starts. False flag. NATO enters Ukraine-Russia conflict officially. Nuclear exchange. Russia hit Moscow and St. Petersburg. The reason I say that is because I don't think that Putin, given his very sensible approach of this whole thing and patience with not having issued any sorts of other attacks other than, within Ukraine itself, which, that was to beat them back and keep them out of the Donbass primarily. He's been very patient, but I do think that obviously if Moscow or St. Petersburg's hit, he will be forced and will certainly retaliate at that point, which is kind of what I'm saying on the next step here. Nuclear exchange, U.S. hit. New York City, D.C., East Coast. And Babylon, which is what's talked about in Revelation 18. So, and I've got that scripture pulled up here. Revelation 18, Babylon has fallen. Talks about the fire, talks about the doom of Babylon. It just, and I did more of an in-depth study on one of the End Times Dates episodes on Revelation 18 and how it is, to me, pointing towards a city, not just the U.S. as a whole. I think it's pointing specifically to New York City. And I've used the analogy of if you were to read Revelation 18 and you were hiring a city to fill that role, New York City is the city that would get the job. And I think it seems pretty obvious, at least to me at this point. So, okay, nuclear exchange, U.S. hit, D.C., New York City, East Coast. Revelation 18. And the other part of that equation is the other article that I mentioned that was on vaccineimpact.com. If World War III breaks out, it wouldn't be contained in Europe, was the quote from Russia. And this is the city killer. I think this is more. I think that more than likely, if Russia were to do a reciprocal type of attack because Moscow's been hit and or St. Petersburg's been hit, it would most likely be this type of weapon. And this is something that we've talked about several times on this show. The city killer. Russia's new Belgorod submarine is the world's biggest and has compartments to launch mini-subs and undersea drones. This is talking about the Poseidon nuclear drone. And I really feel like if Russia retaliates, it would be using one of these. It could be in combination with other nuclear weapons. I don't know. It just, to me, seems obvious that this is what would probably transpire if it were to go that far, which hopefully it never will. But obviously, if you're a believer in Scripture like I am, Revelation 18 is Babylon, and it's talking about a new Babylon, so it's going to unfold in some way and somehow. We just don't know when. So, anyways, this next block here I've got next to it is China and Taiwan, U.S. and Israel and Syria. So China invades Taiwan, and then U.S. gets into it as well with the fighting between Israel and Syria, and you could throw Iran in there as well. Damascus obliterated by Israel. Israel is then invaded because most likely they will use nukes. All of this leads to world banking collapse, U.S. banking collapse, World War III ends, and then this next block down here is talking about the Messiah, and that is the false Messiah. That is the Jewish Moshiach is who this is talking about, the Messiah announced in Israel. And then third temple construction begins. I'm not sure that that's exactly when that would happen. It probably would take a war before that would happen. Perhaps if Israel is attacked or this earthquake thing happens, who knows? But chances are the third temple will begin. That construction would begin after the war. New pandemic emerges. 5G triggers symptoms in the already must be terrifying to nearly all of humanity, possibly bleeding. So that will be triggered. A pandemic that's triggered in the already. So that's the key there. It's not necessarily airborne. But yeah, they can switch it on and make it into whatever symptoms they want using 5G, 6G, whatever systems they're rolling out. Then that triggers the Great Reset. All debts are forgiven. Enslavement in accepting new system. CBDCs announced as solution to financial woes. CBDCs, which we were reporting on that earlier tonight. They are rolling out the digital IDs and the digital money as fast as they can. Diem-based system announced as global monetary system used based on blockchain plus quantum computers. The name of the one world currency remains to be seen. Of course, some of that information comes directly from Anthony Patch. Diem is something he's been talking about for a long time. Diem.com, if you guys want to look that up. DIEM. But yeah, based around blockchain and quantum computers. Micro needle array patch delivers Mark of the Beast tech and protects, in quotes, people from the new gift. Mark of the Beast law announced. National Sunday laws announced. National Sunday laws would be, in my opinion, the one world religion. What I'm calling Sunday climate lockdowns, or just having to do with the climate. New religion begins based on the green agenda, and that comes right out of King Charles 101, right? Because as you guys know, I believe he is the biblical Antichrist, or will be. He's not quite there yet, but he will be. Massive earthquake in Middle East. And that will reveal the Ark of the Covenant in Jerusalem, which is that is where it is. The Israeli Antiquities organization knows all about it. They know where it is. They can't touch it. 10 Commandments discovered because it's in the Ark. And also there with the ark is the videotape that Ron Wyatt had taped when he was there back in the 90s. Ron Wyatt videotape discovered in Cave Temple, and with that videotape is Jesus' blood evidence discovered and confirmed to be true. And the video where I go through these things on End Times Dates, I also talk about how videotapes are only really good for a number of years. So if all of this is going to play out, the videotape has evidence of the finding of the ark on it, and that Ron was the guy that found it. And videotapes are only good for so long. Now, can it be protected supernaturally? Of course it could. But I do think that that's an important little feature there, that videotapes don't last forever, and it's just sitting in a damp shelf in a damp cave. I should say it's sitting on a shelf in a damp cave. So who knows how long it's going to be good for? I think we're very close to this stuff happening, is what I'm saying. Third temple completed. Ark of the Covenant moved inside of it. And that remains to be seen whether or not they can touch it, but it's just a guess. Antichrist enters temple, declares himself to be God. Of course, this is right out of Scripture. I'm not sure how much of this will actually play out literally, but we know that that Satan's already trying to get into the actual temple, which is our human bodies. So I think it's both. I think it's literally also the physical temple, but it's also the real temple, which is our bodies. Meaning altering of the DNA of our bodies. The biblical Antichrist will most likely be Charles III, King Charles. And then Antichrist, or his 3D image, wipes away Jesus' blood from the mercy seat on top of the Ark of the Covenant, or at least tries to. I'm not sure if that will actually occur, or he will try to. And again, it could be some version of that, some version of him. Perhaps not the actual human being. We don't know. Abomination of desolation, Jesus' blood no longer on the mercy seat, atoning for the sins of humanity, was the last thing I wrote on that last block there. So, anyway, that's what I had on all of that. And I had mentioned that we were going to talk about it, so I thought I would bring that up tonight. And this is something that I always link to in the Substack. So if you're on the Substack list and you want to look at it closer, you're welcome to. It is linked there in the Substack list. Make sure you join me on Substack. That's the best place you can be to reach me and to get all the links to the show. Totally free. And you just go there and click. And right here, just type in your email address and click subscribe.